We're taking a thrilling trip back to the 90s. Fear Street Part 1 takes place in 1994, a time of chaotic fashions, grunge music, and of course, fantastic films. The 90s was a golden age for Hollywood, with tons of original stories being told across all film genres. And right now, you can stream plenty of celebrated classics from the era. In the spirit of Fear Street 1994, here's a look at some of the hidden 90s gems you won't want to miss on Netflix. In the 1999 crime thriller Double Jeopardy, Ashley Judd stars as Libby, a woman who seems to have the perfect lavish life with her husband Nick, until the romantic sailing trip turns into a nightmare, and Libby wakes up to find her husband missing, with their vessel covered in blood. Though Nick's body is never found, Libby is convicted for his murder, and she spends years behind bars for a crime she did not commit. If that weren't horrifying enough, she later discovers that Nick faked his own death with the help of Libby's most trusted friend Angela, and now the two are off playing house together with Libby's son.
Daddy!
Nick? Nick?
But before she gets out of prison, Libby learns that she can't be convicted of the same crime twice. So if she's going to be guilty of killing her husband, she might as well actually be guilty of it. With tons of twists, Double Jeopardy is a perfect example of the kind of cleverness that made the 90s such an exciting era for murder mystery movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the dazzling vocal stylings of Miss Kimberly Wallace!
No cringy karaoke performance has ever been more iconic than when Cameron Diaz did it in the 1997 romantic comedy My Best Friend's Wedding. The film features the then up-and-comer as the happy-go-lucky Kimmy, a bride-to-be who is almost perfect, save for a terrible singing voice and the inability to tell when another woman is coming after her groom. Julia Roberts headlines the film as Julianne Potter, a woman who fancies herself to be the best friend of Dermot Mulroney's Michael O'Neill. But there's just one problem. She finally realizes that she's head over heels in love with him, just before he's set to walk down the aisle with Kimmy. Instead of suffering in silence, Julianne uses her position as a member of the wedding party to come in and try to sabotage Michael and Kimmy's big day, so that she can have him all to herself. My Best Friend's Wedding is an all-timer of the era and the rom-com genre as a whole. Alexander Payne's 1999 black comedy Election is a cult classic for good reason. The film features Reese Witherspoon in one of her most memorable roles as Tracy Flick, an ambitious high school student who believes she's a shoo-in for the role of student body president. But when some unexpected competition emerges, the entire election cycle spirals right out of control. Opposite Witherspoon is Matthew Broderick's Jim McAllister, a social studies teacher who not so secretly despises Tracy.
Who knew how high she would climb in life? How many people would suffer because of her? I had to stop her. Now.
Jim focuses his ire on the high school student and tries to sabotage her chances to win the race, accidentally wrecking his own home life in the process. The critically revered film is an excellent satire of the scandals and cults of personality that sometimes emerge in small-town politics. With a sharp script and standout performances from the entire cast, this darkly funny gem is well worth a watch. The 1995 film Kicking and Screaming marked the feature debut of Marriage Story writer-director Noah Baumbach. It centers on a group of friends in college who graduate and then don't know what to do with themselves next. Instead of moving into the next chapter of their lives, they're content to spend time together waxing nostalgic about student life and spinning their wheels at the local bar.
We graduated 4 months ago. What can you possibly be nostalgic for?
But as the title suggests, they'll have to drag themselves off the pause button at some point. With a solid cast of familiar faces and some keenly realistic dialogue, Kicking and Screaming is not only a strong first film for Baumbach, but it also nicely captures the quiet confusion of that point of life when people have to put away childish things. Martial arts films were a major staple of the 90s era, and The Barefooted Kid is a great example of the tight styling and storytelling that can be found in the standout stories of that genre and time. In this Hong Kong film, Aaron Kwok stars as an orphaned and illiterate young man who seeks out an old friend of his family who's working at a factory. Upon visiting his mentor, he becomes unwittingly embroiled in a political turf war that requires him to fight for his new allies, even when he doesn't quite understand why. The practical effects and kung fu choreography in the film still hold up, and there's a layer of intentional hamminess in the more dramatic moments that makes The Barefooted Kid even more fun to revisit. The Karate Kid film franchise took a new direction for the 1994 sequel The Next Karate Kid. The movie marks the first installment without Daniel LaRusso, and instead features Mr. Miyagi taking another troubled teen under his wing. This time, it's Julie, played by Hilary Swank, who needs his help. And she is much more resistant to his teachings than Daniel ever was.
Miyagi pick you up here this afternoon, okay, Julissa? Sayonara.
Set in Boston instead of Los Angeles, The Next Karate Kid explores some all-new locales to match the novel challenges Miyagi faces with his new student. You won't want to miss out on this underrated installment of the classic film franchise. The celebrated 1992 romantic drama Howard's End was an adaptation of the classic 1910 E.M. Forster novel of the same name, about the bitterness and cyclical nature of classicism in Edwardian England. The film notched 3 Academy Awards for its stellar adapted script, art direction, and leading performance of Emma Thompson as Margaret Schlegel, the woman who inherits Howard's End, only to have her rights to the property interfered with by her benefactor's widower, Henry, portrayed by Anthony Hopkins. The pick also stands out for its truly stunning cinematography and the considerable talents of its cast, including Vanessa Redgrave and Helena Bonham Carter. The 90s were full of star-studded romantic period film adaptations, and Howard's End ranks among the best made of them all. In the 1998 film Edge of 17, Chris Stafford stars as Eric Hunter, a teen who spends his last year before college exploring his sexuality. But as Eric begins feeling more and more free with the fact that he is also gay, he's met with some negativity by those around him. Not only that, he also tries to tread lightly when it comes to opening up to his best friend Maggie, who he truly cares for, just not in the way she might hope. Also complicating matters is his mother, who confronts him about his evolving physical image.
Look, I just want to be different.
You don't have to look like a freak.
However, Eric ultimately still finds himself surrounded by love, and his journey to self-empowerment and openness is an inspiring and hopeful bit of LGBTQ on-screen representation. The 1997 martial arts film Hero centers on 2 brothers who flee their hometown to escape poverty and attempt to climb the social and financial ladder in Shanghai. Takeshi Kaneshiro leads the film as Ma Wing-jing, a young man who uses his martial arts skills to his advantage in hopes of overcoming his new life as a manual laborer. Over time, Wing-jing's skills bring him into contact with influential people in town, including the triad mob bosses who are warring over control of the city. With sharp cinematography, well-orchestrated fight sequences, and thoughtful character development, Hero is a truly hidden martial arts gem from the 90s that you should be sure to check out. Steven Spielberg's 1991 fantasy film Hook features the late great Robin Williams as a grown-up Peter Pan who's forgotten all about his amazing childhood and the friends he left behind in Neverland. But when his arch-nemesis Captain Hook, played by Dustin Hoffman, kidnaps his 2 kids, Peter gets dragged against his will into the magical world he left behind.
Oh my God, where are we going?
Save your children, of course.
How do you know about my kids?
Everybody knows. Captain Hook's got him, and you've got to fight him. Let's fly!
Julia Roberts also stars in the film as Peter's beloved sidekick Tinkerbell, who guides him through this land of mermaids and lost boys. And as he faces off against pirates and learns to become a better dad, Peter must also recapture the youthful joy that allowed him to fly so many years ago. With exotic locales, captivating characters, and some very heartwarming themes, Hook became its own sort of Neverland for 90s kids. And it's a magical adventure for a whole new generation.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
For those who grew up on the smattering of strange but awesome Nickelodeon comedy shows, the 1997 slapstick film Good Burger, which was based on a recurring All That sketch, is mandatory viewing. The pick features Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell as Dexter and Ed, a pair of employees at, you guessed it, Good Burger. The story follows the two as they team up to try to save their workplace from a hostile corporate takeover, with their rivals at Mondo Burger throwing everything from poisoned secret sauce to Carmen Electra at these fellas to interfere. The movie is intentionally silly, but boasts an impressive array of additional guest stars, including Sinbad, Shaquille O'Neal, Linda Cardellini, and more. It's a cult classic comedy that's worth a watch for anyone who's nostalgic for the 90s.
What is it, boy? Oh, what? 4 clowns? Well, their car's broken down. They're in trouble.
And that dog is not talking to you.
Speaking of Nick Kid Essentials, another throwback show that was popular enough to earn the silver screen treatment was Rugrats, which produced its first feature-length film in 1998. The Rugrats movie features all of your favorite diaper-donning little ones from the cartoon series. Plus, it introduces us to Tommy Pickles' baby brother Dill, whose arrival makes the house even more chaotic than usual. At first, Tommy tries his best to get along with Dill, but the new baby makes no such effort, and eventually drives Tommy and his baby buddies to the brink. So Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil decide to load up the Reptar wagon for a trip back to the hospital to take Dill back. And of course, Angelica and Spike are dragged into the mix as well. In the end, the Rugrats movie is an engaging little adventure that'll keep real-life kiddos and their parents entertained in equal measure. The Coen brothers created some of the most iconic characters of all time in 1998's The Big Lebowski. Jeff Bridges stars as slacker bowling fanatic Jeffrey Lebowski, better known as the Dude.
That or his dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Though he's happy to spend his days lounging at the alley with his friends, the Dude's life takes a wild turn when a film kingpin's enforcers show up at his house, having mistaken him for another, much wealthier Jeffrey Lebowski. After his favorite rug is destroyed in the attack, the Dude seeks his own sort of reparation from the Big Lebowski, but he inadvertently becomes ensnared in an elaborate kidnapping plot where nobody seems to really know what's going on. Not only is the Big Lebowski an all-timer gem from the Coens, but its dry humor and hilariously clueless characters make it a must-see for any movie fan.
Good night, sweet prince.
Thanks for watching. Click the links in our video to watch more from Netflix Film Club. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the latest exclusive videos. Plus, hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.